celebrating our 20th season. From the college by the lake, meeting the personalities and discussing the issues that affect all of Coeur d'Alene and the inland Northwest. We are the North Idaho College Public Forum. And now, here's your host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart.
Welcome to today's program, and as I've said many times on this particular one, we find new subjects to address that we have not discussed before, and that's the case today. Welcome to the program Tom McCleskey, who is in the field of scuba diving, and that is our issue today, and we welcome him to our program. He's become rather renowned here in the Northwest for his work, and not only being an expert scuba diver, but he has been called out many times to deal with tragic accidents where individuals have drowned or automobiles have gone into lakes, and he's had to recover those individuals. He's also recovered other items like boats, and in North Idaho we had an accident where some very large and heavy equipment went into the lake, and he was also working trying to recover that particular equipment. Tom, it's a pleasure having you on our program. We welcome you here and thank you for taking time to discuss what is really a very, very interesting subject, and I know that you do this for the reasons that I've given, but also it's a sport, and we look forward to interviewing you today. I'm very pleased to have three members of the panel today to address this issue of scuba diving. First of all is Janelle Burke, who is an attorney in the state of Idaho, and next to her is Steve Schink, who is Dean of College Relations and Development at North Idaho College, and I'm very pleased to have today also Lloyd Marsh, who is a member of the faculty at North Idaho College, teaching in the natural sciences. And at this time I would invite Janelle Burke to commence the questioning.
Many of us have followed your career in the newspapers, but we don't know how you got started. Can you tell us how you got started in diving and then how you got started in the diving business?
Okay. I started out diving just to be able to cool off in the summertime. I hate being hot, so I thought, well, what can I do to cool off? You just buy a scuba tank, go lay on the bottom, watch boats go over. So that's how I started. And then after that, there wasn't that many people around diving, and so if someone needed a diver, they knew I was diving, so I'd get called to do these various jobs, like fix a water system, or I didn't even know what a water system was when I first started going down on the bottom.
And so then you just started going out on calls, and people would call you because they knew you could do the diving. Is there a difference between freshwater diving that you're doing in the local lakes and rivers and diving that would be done, say, ocean diving?
Your freshwater just kind of mud, silt, and treasure hunt, and your saltwater just alive and moving, so it's two complete different type diving.
Do you have to have different equipment too?
Kinda. Like around here the lakes are cold, so a dry suit is a lot more comfortable, so you'll want to use a dry suit. You go to the Bahamas, a thin suit just kind of protect you from the the element is about all you need. So as far as your regulator, your tanks, they're the same, just your gear to keep you warm.
So once people began to call you, what kinds of things did they call you for? What are some of the diverse numbers of different sorts of things that you've gone out to do in diving?
I'm trying to think right off the top of my head. It's just, like Tony said, it's been cars, it's been planes, it's been people,
Does someone ever lose something and they ask you to go out and look for it?
Definitely. Boats, rings.
How successful are you with a ring? That's a pretty small object. But if someone knew exactly where they dropped it from the boat,
yeah, if they know where they dropped it. Like one time, I had a gal call me up from Hayden Lake. She lost her wedding band. She said, "I know exactly where I lost it. It's right off my dock." So, that'll be easy. Be just off the dock, off a piling, be right there. I get out there. Yeah, I was just windsurfing right out there. Oh, thanks. And so I started looking, and I lucked out. I did find it. So.
Great.
Steve Schink.
Tom, as a recently certified diver myself, I was amazed at how many people I have met and continue to meet who are divers. But I don't know another commercial diver in North Idaho. Are you the only one around who really makes a living full-time at diving?
There's got to be other commercial divers around. But like in Coeur d'Alene now, I do most of the work for Murphy's and for Chase and R.C. Wurst, and so I do I've got those people on my side that they use me.
I keep you busy.
Keeps me busy. There's the guy that taught me how to dive. He's a commercial diver, but he works for the big outfit, so he's gone all the time. So like he's, he works on the dam, so he might be home once in a while. He's usually, in Washington, he's in Oregon, he's in Montana. So just locally around here, pretty much got it tied up.
Well, why don't you tell us just a little bit about it? I mean, not all of your time is spent in the water actually retrieving wrecks and that sort of work, or doing underwater construction work, that sort of thing. You got a couple of other businesses that keep you working in the water, so to speak. What are those?
Okay, well, to make a North Idaho living, what I've got is I got a little dive store, and then I teach it, and then I do the commercial. So between the three of them, it keeps you busy enough to keep bread on the table.
What are you finding in the teaching end of your business? Is there a steady trend up in the number of students you're certifying in a year's time?
Yeah, and it's weird. It used to be, the 20s, the people in the 20s, the 30s, and then once in a while you'd have the younger group.
Age-wise, yeah.
Age-wise, and now it's the older people are taking it up. I've been teaching people that are in their 60s, which I think is neat. It used to be if you're in your 60s, it's time to go home, sit in the rocker, just sit there until you die. Now these people are in their 60s. They're, they figured, okay, they've raised their family, they got the kids through school. It's time for them to go play, and they're taking up diving. So instead of going on their cruise, they're not just sitting on the deck reading a book. They're down there looking at the fish. And I think that's neat. It takes you a little bit longer to teach them because they're a little more nervous or whatever, but it's neat. I'll take the time to teach them because they want to learn.
Well, now that brings up a point that maybe we ought to make for the audience. The sport, because of equipment advances, has changed a lot from the Lloyd Bridges days. You don't need to be a big, strong, physically active person to dive today, do you?
No. Nowadays, it's almost a push-button world for diving. You put your lead on, you're ready to go down. You got this thing called a buoyancy compensator. You push a little button, dumps the air out, down you go. You're on the bottom, hit the button, make yourself neutral, time to come up, hit the button, you start coming up. So you don't have to be a real strong swimmer.
Lloyd Marsh.
Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about the technical aspects of diving, especially in the local area. What kind of depths are we talking about?
In Coeur d'Alene, you can hit the bottom anywhere you want. You're talking, the deepest part in Coeur d'Alene Lake is 210. There's about 3 holes, one at 210, one at 195, one at 165, and the lake runs about 120. So there isn't anything on the bottom of Coeur d'Alene Lake that you can't get to. Hayden Lake, the same. Deepest is about 189. Pend Oreille, different story. It gets deep. It gets down to 1,230 feet. The bays are fun to dive in Pend Oreille. Pend Oreille, visibility-wise, is a lot better in Coeur d'Alene, so it is more fun to dive in Pend Oreille for visibility, but more things happen in Coeur d'Alene for the treasure hunting. Looking for the old ships, looking for the garbage on the bottom.
Steve was mentioning the fact that you do teach people to dive. What kind of depths are these students generally diving at?
Okay, when you're teaching them, you teach them in the 12-foot pool, and then you take them out to the lake, and I got to certify them between 28 to 60 feet, and I like to take them down to 60 feet just to see what the reaction's going to be at that depth. And then if they keep playing, they can work their way on down to maybe to 100 feet, and that's pretty much the max for a sport diver.
I see. Some of the other technical aspects of diving, are you or have you thought about when you're searching for something, do you use a specific discipline, patterns, or do you just go down and swim around and look around and hope you find it?
Yeah, you definitely got to work up a search pattern. You just swim down, go around. You haven't got the slice to where you're at, where you're going, because the bottom is usually pretty much flat and muddy. So you've got to run your little compass course. Set out a plan.
I see. Right.
Tom, you've been very cooperative, and you brought some photographs with you, and we're going to take a look at some of those photographs, and we're going to start with a boat that's, from your perspective, I'm sure is rather famous, and then after we look at this particular photograph of the boat, we're going to do a series of others, and I would like for you to walk us through these and explain to us. Here's the first one here with the Starfire jet, I guess. Would you tell us the history behind that?
Okay, like it says on the side, if it's a Starfire jet, well, that's the part that motors the boat. Okay, the Starfire jet is the first jet unit that's ever invented and manufactured in the United States, and it happened to be in Spokane, is where they manufactured this. Okay, it's in this a Tollycraft boat, and this Tollycraft that it's in, Tolly only made like 200 of them. Well, they only made 4 with the Starfire jet unit in it. Okay, this boat that you're looking at here was a demo that the Starfire people use for their demo. So this boat's been to Spokane boat shows, Seattle boat shows, Colorado boat shows, up and down the Missouri River, and it was made in like 1960. And by 1964, it had already been on the bottom of the lake for a period down about 4 different times. The first
Are boats like individuals and so forth? Some of them have bad luck.
yeah, I don't know. Like that, like this had a jet unit. And so the first time it went down was the guy who's demoing it on Lake Coeur d'Alene. He's saying, okay, look at this boat. It's got a jet unit in it, so you don't have to worry about the prop. So he goes up to this log. He goes to run over this log. He goes over the log rolls, a knot comes up, pokes a hole in the bottom of the boat, because it's still a wooden boat. So, oh no, it's leaking. So he goes as fast as he can, heads to shore. Before he gets to shore, boom, down it goes.
Just goes out from under him.
Yeah, boom, down it is. So next time he's demoing it in Spokane at the Bowl and Pitcher. I guess no boat had been ever able to go up and down the Bowl and Pitcher. And so he goes up the bowl, no problem. Then he's going down. He doesn't give enough gas, so the current swoops him over the side, hits a rock, pokes a hole in it, so he heads for shore. Before he gets there, down it goes.
So no boat had ever done that yet.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the next photograph that you'll explain to us.
Okay, this photo's like when I've, like I said, the boat's been down numerous times. So this is when I was looking for the boat. I've already located the boat, and I've got my line tied on it, going down to rig it to go ahead and bring the boat up.
This particular boat, have you brought it up more than once, or?
No, this will be the first time I've ever had to bring it up.
So different individuals have had experiences with that boat. And we said earlier in the show that there's a lot of different things that you brought up. Sometimes it's humorous and fun. Other times, of course, there's been tragedies. They're going to bring up on the screen another photograph, and you can explain to us. I believe this is your outfit that you wear when you dive.
This is one of my older dry suits, and we're just getting zipped up to head down and rig the boat. And that's Rick Clark sitting alongside me. He worked for the Coeur d'Alene Press and does again. And that's the gal that's sitting there is Pete Peterson's sister, and she was just there the day we brought up the boat to kind of help.
How long does it take you to prepare for a dive like this when you with the equipment you have to put on? And
if you're in a big hurry, not that long. Like it's been 2 years ago, we had a kid go through the ice out at at Post Falls. When I left the dive shop, drove clear to Post Falls, got into my gear, zipped in, jumped all gear on in the water, and got him out in less than 20 minutes had passed. So if you're in a hurry, you can get in and out of it quick. But normally, if you're just taking your time BSing, still 10 minutes.
But you've really trained yourself for those emergencies because you're called out on them. Here's another shot.
That's just the barge, Jim Chase's barge. We're just, getting ready to bring the boat up. There's Pete Peterson, the kid that was involved in the wreck. He's the person that's just off to the left. And there's one of the Channel 2, I think, is there interviewing him.
What was the date about this particular time when you brought this boat up?
Oh, I brought it up on April 1, 9 years ago.
Okay. And then of course, they're in a certain kind of condition that's rather poor. And here is another shot of this.
Okay, yeah, that's just the boat, coming up. I don't know if you can see the whole bow of the boat is missing.
Tom, in this case, how deep was this where you had to bring the boat out?
Okay, it's at 170 foot in depth.
And that has a lot to do with the way that you bring the boat up. And
yeah, it's like the deeper you go, the less time you have. Everyone says,
what do you mean the less time you have?
Okay, the deeper you go, the air in your tank is getting compressed. Okay, so now this compressed air is going through your bloodstream. Okay, so the more compressed air you've got into your bloodstream, the less amount of time you can spend down there. It's like at 170 feet, you're allowed, 5 minutes. So this is how long does the tank of air last? 30 feet, you can get hour and a half, 2 hours. You get down to 60 feet, you've only got like 50 minutes. Your tank could last longer, but you've already got this much compressed air that's running around through your bloodstream. So as you come up, that air can expand, stop the blood flow, and that's where you get the bends.
And so, here's another photograph of the boat. It's really in bad shape when you get up. So there's a lot of work to put it back in running order, isn't there?
Yeah, there's. And not as much work for me as expense. Sid Young has the boat shop out, in Post Falls. Now it used to be in Coeur d'Alene. He's the one that's doing the fixing up of it, and it's looking excellent. Like I said, it'll be done here in the next week, and so it'll be ready for the water again.
And when it go down like that, is the engine is it has to be replaced, does it, or can you?
No, it's amazing. Like if it's salt water, you wouldn't even bother to bring the boat up.
Right.
But this is fresh water. The boat was down for like 18 years, and to fix the engine up, we had to replace 2 valves. It took us longer to find stock rings and parts for it, trying to fix it up as it was, because it was unhurt. The cylinders weren't hurt, the pistons weren't hurt, the starter, the generator wasn't hurt, the sending units weren't hurt. It's just amazing. You just take the old steam cleaner, kick off the rust, and when I got it home, I took the old hand crank and I could crank it over, so it was turning over before we ever took it in for repair.
Even before then,
Yeah.
it preserved it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Lloyd?
Could I just interject a question? I know that the salvage rates on the ocean are such that if you find something that's been abandoned or sunk, it's yours. Is that the same as in the lakes?
No, and then the oceans actually changed too.
Oh.
Insurance companies have changed those laws. It's like, so if you find something on the bottom, normally it belongs to the insurance company. But you can usually, I found, like cars, pickups, motorcycles, whatever. So when you get the serial number off of it, call it in, find out the name of the insurance company, and they will sell it to you real reasonable. And normally they'll just say you can have it unless you want the title. If you want the title of the truck or the car or boat, then they want money to do the bookwork. So you can usually, $100, it's yours.
Mm-hmm. When you told me to go about the depth of the water, it's like Ponderay, which is so deep, there could be a boat there that you couldn't bring up because you wouldn't have the time? Or?
Well, yeah, in Ponderay I know where there's a Beechcraft, a little Bonanza Beechcraft. When it's flying, it's worth probably $120,000. Mm-hmm. Well, sitting on the bottom, might be worth $10,000, and I know exactly where there is one. Mm-hmm. It's at 805 foot, so you can't get down to it. Mm-hmm. Like I had a picture of the plane as it's going down, so I borrowed this picture, took a picture of it, blew up all the background, went along the shoreline until I found the background, and I started sonaring out until I finally ran into, got my reading. Oh yeah, there it is.
There's one other photograph I would like them to put up, if they will. There was a real tragic accident on this lake. There's been more than one, and here's a photograph of it. Would you explain this and tell us what happened? There's 2 young women that were killed in this, and I think when you brought the boat up, that the whole story changed of who was responsible for the accident. Would you tell us that story?
Okay. The story on the boat itself, well, on the whole thing, was this Pete was accused of hitting this boat broadside and killing 2 girls. Okay, so then that was the story. Then they went into a civil suit. They lost $120,000 per girl. They paid out $240,000, which I didn't know anything about any of that. But anyway, so I'm out looking for this boat. I get a sonar reading, and as I'm going down, I pass the ski handles that are hanging up there. So you go down, so about 50 feet from the bottom. Here's a ski handle just kind of drooped over here. Okay, this is going to be a boat. So you continue on down as you get close to it. If you're, I don't want if I'm to see the girls, so you kind of stand back, look, don't see the girls. When I get down on the bottom, here's his boat with the bow deck of the girls' boat, which has gone in on the port side and sticking out on the starboard side. So right then, this says, well, he did not hit the girls' broadside, and so basically he had the right of way. And so then I just noticed like his dash lights were out. The girls' dash lights were in. I figured, well, they could have hit the dash themselves and pushed the lights in, so they might have had their lights on. Who's to say on that? And so then so after I'd seen that, I went up to Larry House, which was a Marine deputy at the time of this. And I said, Larry, I found that boat that you told me about, that happened 18 years ago, but it didn't happen like you guys said. He did not hit the girls' broadside. The bow deck of the girls' boat's gone into the port. It's taking on the starboard. He said, oh, okay. Did you see the girls? I said, no. He said, well, think you can find them? Well, I can if you guys want me to. And so they came back, yeah, we want the girls found, so I did do that. And then in bringing up, that boat, well, then the bow deck of the girls' boat came up, which brought the throttle shifting cable. Okay, and that's what that is. And you're looking at that, so that's off of the girls' boat. And so you figure, well, okay, why did the girls hit him broadside? Why were they going this fast? The girls had a runaway boat. If you look at, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 screws you can see that are countersunk, and this other screw that's sticking out was an oversized screw. So somewhere along the line, that screw that's sticking out broke off. Something had gone wrong with that screw originally that would countersink, so someone put in an oversized screw that wouldn't countersink. So if you test it, it only sticks through that shifting thing by a thread and a half. So the girls must have put the throttle down, broke that thread and a half loose, and out it came, and it just locked their throttle. So the girls had a runaway boat.
After all those years, that investigation told a story that this wasn't known until that evidence was found.
Yeah.
Janelle Burke.
I have a series of little questions. You mentioned the sonar. Can you tell us what that is and what it's used for?
Okay, what I use is called the Lawrence X16. Okay, everyone says, well, why didn't they find this boat 18 years before you did? Okay, the deal is, when they first came out with these little, all it is a fish finder. I call it a sonar because I don't fish. Okay, what they did, in the old days, it went from 0 to 30 feet. Okay, if it was deeper than that, then you had to change the scale on it. Then you had to go from 0 to 60 feet. Well, if it was deeper than that, you had to go from 0 to 120 feet. Well, this happened to be 170 feet, so then I had to go and dial it again. So then it went from 0 to 360 feet. So that meant a 1/16 of an inch represented 12 feet. So there's no way the old sonars could pick up that. So when the new sonar came out, they went in 10-foot increments. So I could dial the bottom 170 foot, and then I could say 150 feet for my upper limit. So that meant, the 20 feet in there was the whole bottom was being represented. So they 4-inch scale. So so when I went over that with the boat, it made a big high hump. Okay, that's a something.
Some places you know about, like for example, Lake Coeur d'Alene, you know pretty well. But what about a river, for example? Do you know the rivers around here? And what is the difference between river and lake diving?
Okay, I've had to dive in the rivers in the spring runoff for people to get out there, doing rafting, canoeing, not knowing about the fast-moving water. For a diver, there's definitely a big difference. The lake is just calm, and if you got a wave action up above, you got a 3-foot wave. Down below it, it's another 3 foot. You go on the river, like spring runoff, you just got you got all that water moving through there. Force. So you've got it might be moving 5 miles an hour, and diver can't swim against it, or people can't swim against it. So when you go down, if I'm looking for a victim in the river, like normally I'll wear like 30 pounds of my weight belt. If I'm down in the river, I'll wear double my weights. So I'll wear 60 pounds. I'll be super heavy. I can go down so that way you can kind of control yourself, so you're not going to be just bounced down the river like you are, part of the river. So you got to definitely weight heavy.
Can you tell us how dangerous is this whole process? Let's talk about danger from 2 points of view. First of all, from your commercial diving, and then as a sport diver. And can you make some distinctions between the danger in those two kinds of diving? There's a lot of danger, I suppose, in some of the things that you do. Some is rather routine. Fixing a water pump is probably rather routine.
I always feel it's kind of all routine. I don't see any danger in it, because when you go, when you're jumping in, the lake, the ocean, the river, whatever, you can't breathe it. You got your air on your back. If you get tangled, you better get yourself untangled. And so you think it out, what could happen, and you figure out, you come up with a plan to handle the problem if there is a problem. And so I don't find any real danger in any of it, because I've thought it out before I ever jump in.
But as a sport, as a whole, it has come to the point where people are careful. Is that what you're saying? People understand what's going on.
Yeah. They should be. I'm trying to think. There has been divers that have died, and the thing that they usually do is they panic. If you don't panic, if you think it out before you jump in, if this happens, then you've handled the panic before it's there. Then you can usually cope with it. I can tell you, a couple of dead diver stories where people have died, and it was just because they panicked. There's one kid, ran out of air, swam up to his buddy, out of air, buddy breathed. The buddy went up to him, let him start buddy breathing. They both ran out of air. One guy dropped his weight belt. He went up. The other guy just dropped, crawled along the bottom until he died. And all he had to do was drop his weight belt. He would have gone up. So it's just like, why did he do that?
Dave Schenck.
Maybe your experience may cause you to minimize some of the dangers involved in your business, I'm sure. And you talked a little while ago about planning, and that's sort of an old axiom in the diving business. Maybe they teach it to everybody. You plan your dive and you dive your plan. But I would think that the most dangerous situation you get in is a rescue dive. Because isn't there a tremendous amount of pressure on you to get in the water just as quickly as you can? And sometimes you're going into ice, sometimes you're going into a river. You can't, at that point, you can't take the time to sit there and plan every aspect of the dive that's coming up. Don't you feel like you've got to dive in and do something? Or
your adrenaline definitely is flowing. Yeah, when you're, like you said, you're seeing a car, there's people in there, you figure out if you can get them out quick, you might be able, to save a life. So you are putting yourself in a, kind of an unthought situation, but it's usually, but if you all of a sudden bang, the problem is there, you don't, as long as you don't panic, and okay, I'm tangled, trapped, you can just go ahead and usually get yourself back out of it.
You mentioned the boy under the ice a few years ago. Were you able to save him, or was it too late?
He's still alive, and the last time I talked to the dad, he's doing well. Like, he was 7 when it happened, and then last time I talked to him, the family, he was up to about a 3-year-old. So he was they have him in school. He's doing well. He definitely looked good. So
that's wonderful. Have there been other cases like that where you've actually been able to get people out from under the ice, out from a vehicle? And
no, most time when the beeper goes off, whatever, it's usually a recovery. It's rare that it's a rescue. That was super neat.
What about that's the, I'm sure that's the high profile, exciting part of the job, but much of your work is more routine, and yet there are some things that people have heard about, read about in the newspapers. You worked, I think, on the floating green at the Coeur d'Alene Resort Golf Course. Tell us a little bit about that project.
That just paid my bills. That was just to me, it was just a basic. They just had all these concrete, modulars for me to put together underwater. There's no real big deal. They just brought them together. You went there with this little plate, put it up there, did the nuts and bolts, and to me it was just like, no big deal. But I guess I did have a person trying to help me. He's going underneath there. He's upside down. I figure, I can't do this. He gets down there upside down, starts choking. You handle it. Why? It's basic. You just walk around upside down. You're just like a spider on a ceiling. You just, you don't wear your fins. You don't wear your weight belt. You just kind of bounce underneath and just walk around upside down with a wrench and nuts and bolts hanging down there. You just go ahead and put things together.
Tom, weren't you also the diver that found the big pieces of earth-moving equipment that slid into the lake on the I-90 project?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And those, it wasn't cost-effective to try to bring those back up.
Well, I thought they could have brought up the scraper, but that was the guy that was doing the project, Bob Garcella. He didn't want them up. I don't know. They're still there. They're now well buried. To me, the scraper would have been an easy one to bring up.
But when you're doing those kind of things, when you have to use cables and so forth, the heavier it is, the more likely that you can't. In other words, it can break, can it not?
Yeah. Like he's got like D9 cats, which are super, powerful.
I just got the signal. We're out of time. That's a terrible way to end without you answering the question, but I have to go by the clock. And thank you, Tom, and the panel for being with us today. It was really an informative subject, and thank you for your time.
Rich, Tony.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll be with us again next week at this same time when we will discuss what we consider a significant issue. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
The North Idaho College Public Forum was videotaped live from the studios of Telemedia Services on the campus of North Idaho College for viewing at this more appropriate time. We invite you to join us again next week for another all-new edition of the North Idaho College Public Forum on this public television station.